I'm conscious that I'm the last one up. I'm conscious that there's bottles of wine and nice food out there. I'm also conscious it's very hot in here. In fact, I don't know if anybody close to windows would mind just opening windows a bit, and it'll just be a bit more comfortable for us during this next 10 to 15 minutes. Partly because I'm last up, I also thought I'd start with telling you a story. It's the end of the day, and a story might be a nice beginning. So I've created a very brief storyboard, which is just to set the scene, really, for what it is I'm going to talk about this evening. Sorry, I should introduce myself, actually. I'm new here to the Graduate School of Education, having led the PGCE secondary English course at Bath Spa for 6 years, and I'm now working on the PGCE English course here. So I do exactly the same as Ian, but this is my base. Okay, so I've got a storybird called In Search of Inspiration. And I love this picture of somebody just sitting there with a wastepaper bin that you just know is going to get fuller and fuller and fuller. Obviously a very traditional form of writing. We might just delete things now on our computers, might we, if things don't go right. So once upon a time, there was a student who had to write an essay on poetry. His teacher had told him that he needed to weigh up different points of view. It puzzled him. He couldn't think what to do. He searched and searched for ideas, but just could not find any. And it made him sad because all his friends had already finished their essay about poetry and could go out to play. But all he could do was worry and worry and worry. Where was he going to get the inspiration to help him weigh up ideas and discuss what the poems meant to him? He plucked up the courage to ask his teacher for help. Then his teacher gave him an idea, because teachers are good at that. She suggested that he shared his thoughts about the poems online and discussed them with other people. He tried it. He found he could see into a new world full of ideas. He wrote down some of his thoughts on the poems. It was just like sharing secrets with a best friend. He gathered lots and lots of ideas and finished his essay. Finally, he could have a good night's sleep and go off to play in the morning and join his friends. Okay, well there's my quick storyboard, and I'm going to escape from that to exit and move on to, oops, sorry, not that. Move on to my main presentation here. Move that tab. So sorry. Let's escape from this as well. Apologies, I set this up before the session, and it's escaped me. So just while I'm finding it again, I've got a Prezi here for you, and again the Prezi is following on the sort of story theme. That's where I log in. There we are. Apologies. This is quite a wacky one, but it appealed to me because again it tells a story. It tells a story of a person here going through a computer game to finally reaching the goal at the end. So let's get going. Briefly, what I'm going to do today is in the next 12-ish minutes, Lindsay, is that right? Tell you, I'll summarise some work I've been doing over the last few years, really, particularly focusing on aspects that English teachers, secondary English teachers, find hard to teach, and that includes things like grammar, things like teaching comparative poetry, particularly for examinations, language analysis, and that's a recurrent thing for secondary English teachers at the moment, of course, because of the spoken language analysis at GCSE. A few years ago, I was chair of the NATE ICT committee, and we were funded by Vector to look specifically at things that teachers found hard to teach and to find ways of enabling the teaching, ways to make things easier to teach using ICT. I'm not going to focus particularly on a lot of examples today. I'm going to focus in fact on just one example initially. But please do have a look at the whole project, which is on the NATE website, and I've got some further links at the end for you to jot down, where there's 20 or 25 examples, case studies really, teachers in the classroom working through things that their classes just found difficult. Yes, it included boys and the difficulty boys have sometimes with writing. Although we've got two boys here, I'm sure that you don't have too much difficulty with writing. I really don't like these stereotypes, but yeah, so there's 25 examples there on the website, working things through. The website uses showcases really a whole variety of types of ICT, including video, interestingly, and programming, as I should say, I like that term, use of interactive whiteboards, etc. But today I just want to focus on a couple of ideas really, thinking about wiki wars, focusing on discussion boards, the use of discussion boards in ICT, and development of that really, Twitter wars. So you've got two contrasting Twitter sites set up, and children can feed in their thoughts and ideas. I'm going to use now about 5 of my next allocated minutes by just showing you an example then of one of these particular activities. It's slightly out of date because it's using the old AQA anthology, which went out with the previous GCSEs. But it's part of the, this is part of the Teachers TV programme. I'm just going to set it running and then scroll up to 7 minutes. Sorry, so yes, 7:55 I think it is. Once we've got going. There we go. Sorry, I'll do this with the mouse for efficiency's sake. Oh, bang on, there we go. Are you plugged in?
I think cable's still unplugged, sorry.
Thank you. Oh yes. I'm going to show you 2 excerpts. One's the initial, the setup of the project, where we get a description of exactly what's happening, what the teacher wanted to do, and then a little bit from further on in this section of the programme, which shows you actually it really working very well, in my opinion, and shows the value of this, using this type of discussion. Thank you very much.
Grammar School in Kent, English teacher Carol Wheel uses wiki pages and discussion threads to help her Year 11 GCSE students study their poetry anthology.
The anthology is a huge tome. It's 28 poems, and they've got to know them inside out. They can be asked to talk about any 4, and they've got to interrelate them as well, make relationships and interpret. That's hard for A-level students, never mind for GCSE. And for a teacher, the hard thing is how to get it in their heads.
To help her pupils prepare for their exams, Carol set up some secure wiki pages on the school server with background information about all the poems. But she found the most powerful feature was the discussion area, where pupils could exchange their own ideas. They call these whole class online discussions Wiki Wars.
We use our personal opinions and the notes to war against each other. These are the comments from everyone so far. So Mariam's initial comment was, is the poem about love or hate? And then Bailey's commented saying, I believe the poem is about lack of love for another. The babysitter does not feel anything for the child, not even simple agape love. What do you think? And then Mariam's gone on, and then Mariam, and then now everyone's just getting involved in this. I'm going to chip into this now.
Great, so he's about to chip in just while I'm finding my next spot. So we already see that those boys are engaged, they're less confident, are able to find a voice. There's energy, there's everybody chipping in. He said, everybody's involved in the same discussion. If we had a discussion now, we'd only hear one voice at a time, really, wouldn't we? And we have classroom rules where we say only one voice, please. But in a discussion like this online, everybody can be active in it, almost instantaneously. So I'm just going to scroll through to see another good example of.
So I was wiki warring with Alex when they were young, but I think there's and I suppose he's pretty young.
This one is about politics, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, Easter 1998, the Irish thing. How about you put in post a message or a subject? Post a message. Is this poem obviously political? And then we'll see if anybody else comes up.
And over the other side of the room, this question soon gets a response.
I've just opened up another argument, so we're doing 3 at the moment here, and I've opened up the argument against those doing difficult births. There's one of a religious interpretation of the resurrection of Jesus, a political interpretation of the Northern Ireland peace process, and one simply just of a nature interpretation of how a sheep is giving birth to a lamb.
3 replies, isn't it? I'm not worried about spelling punctuations.
I believe that this poem has 3 layers about the Easter and the rebirth of Christ, the peace treaty being signed in Belfast, and the birthing of the Lamb.
But why not just talk together as a class?
I think if you actually discuss it on the wiki page, it helps to everyone later, after the wiki war is finished, can read through the notes, pick up different people's opinions, and this helps them revise for exams.
When we did Katrine, me and Aston before, we got set the actual poem of Katrine, and then we did a wiki war on it, but I didn't understand it until after we had a wiki war on it, so that was quite useful because I didn't understand it at all.
You get to weigh up other people's opinions and you kind of go into the poem into more depth if there's more of you.
At the end of the day, Carol looks through one of the wiki threads.
This one's got comments made the other day. 211, 212, 213, 213. Several people around the room were all discussing this one issue simultaneously. You couldn't get that in a class because in a classroom only one person put their hand up at a time, and you can only just do speaking and listening that way. This way, everyone's got a voice, and you can see there's 90 responses on this one thing alone. And it's you can see a lot of flow activity at 234, 246, etc. And then you find that they've gone out of my lesson because that ends at 2:35, and they're still at it somewhere else, and they're carrying on. And they've got loads of quotations in here. He says, "Right, Lydia, let's settle this." And he goes on, quotation, 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 all the way through. And he says at the end, "Yeah, just a few. Yeah, you got owned." And that is going on at 5:41, the same day. So obviously it's carrying on way beyond the classroom. And that wasn't set homework. That was simply because they had unfinished business.
I love that idea of unfinished business, the idea that they're stimulated to carry on doing something out of school in their own time. They're not on their PlayStations, they're thinking about the poems that they're going to be examined on later on in the curriculum. Right, so let's get rid of that here. That wasn't a piece of work that I was actively involved in. That was one of my colleagues. So what I did want to do is do a discussion, have a discussion more, a wiki war myself, and actually that this took place when I invited into the Graduate School of Education here the English Associate Tutors, and we have Rachel here from Cotton School who was one of that band, as well as the PGC student teachers. And we looked at a whole variety of ways in which ICT could be brought into English teaching, specifically secondary English teaching, literacy teaching. And we tried things out. We tried out storyboards, and we had fun with those. But one group conducted their own wiki war about the value of ICT in developing literacy. Interesting. I want to show you this because it was a very short discussion, and that I think that's fine. I'm very much of the opinion that as well as creating a beautiful product, such as the blogs and such as the programmes that we've heard of earlier, it's the process that's really, really important as well. So the group who were actually involved in creating the discussion board actually typed very little because they were so busy talking about it. The discussion was taking place. Okay, it's not recorded in the way that the teacher on the clip was just recording it, but there was value, very much value in what it was they were talking about. And another group were looking at the same debate, in other words, what is the value of ICT in the English classroom, and they conducted their debate via Twitter. And I deliberately set up two Twitter accounts, one called Anti-ICT, and I can't remember what I called the other one actually, but it was very much pro-ICT, so we had two deliberately contrasting views. Therefore, people had to some extent, play devil's advocate, and there were devil's advocates, interestingly, on both sides of the debate. This one looks at some of the positives. We've got some positive tweets here. How about a book review in 140 characters? So they've been looking at other tweets coming in, and they've been inspired. Obviously, when you've only got a very limited number of characters in which to write, there's a lot of summary skills that are involved in creating these tweets. So there's a discussion going on about an exercise in brevity. There's also discussion about audience and censorship and who's who's doing the censoring. Should the teacher be the censor in some of these aspects? Sorry, I've just gone too far there. Because I also want to come into this one, which was interesting because this this Twitter account was very deliberately showing anti-ICT. And I think there's some very valid comments that we've got here as well. I mean, they're talking, for example, about, specifically from Twitter, that there's lots of other stuff going on Twitter, and there's lots of other, thanks Lizzie, lots of other invitations to get distracted from the main task. There are, we've got Steve Martin and Taylor Swift, for example, came up here as people to follow on Twitter, and the group were commenting that actually it would be very easy for them to get distracted and focus on these distracting other elements. I completely buy into that, but I don't know, and I suppose it's up to us as individuals and make professional choices about the extent to which we can trust our students to use this effectively. Just to finish off then, I wonder if you've been inspired by all of, or any of, today's sessions on using about how to use ICT to develop students' literacy. And I'd actually like then you to participate now. If you can grab your phones, if you've got your phones with you. I've set up a Twitter poll here. I'll just jot the address on the board actually to make it nice and clear for everybody. It's a tweet poll, twtpoll.com, and then the address is nnx10g. I'll jot that down up here again. And if you have got access to a mobile, you can dive into that. And there's a question there. Have you been inspired by today's presentations, all of them, to use ICT to develop students' literacy? Yes, definitely. I'll use some of these ideas tomorrow. So people who want to jump straight in. Yes, once I've sorted out the hardware and software, and what I haven't spoken about and what I could talk a long time about are the problems that we have as teachers in getting the kit, getting ourselves trained, the time all this takes, etc. Yes, but I think there are some significant issues to overcome. No way, I'm not interested. This is anonymous, it's completely anonymous of course, so you can absolutely put what you really think. Please do click on one of those buttons and vote, and in a moment we'll have a look at the results. 8 people who've had a look so far. Just give you a couple of minutes to add your ideas. In fact, just while you do add your ideas, if you'd like to, we'll move on to the next image as well, which is just gives you the references, some of the references that I've used this afternoon. If you want to jot those down, I'll give you another minute, and we'll just go back to the Twitter poll then and see what the findings are. Who managed to vote? 30 seconds. I've got 13 votes so far. Okay, well let's have a look at the results so far. Let's have a look at this again later. Oh, look at that. Fantastic. As I say, this is completely anonymous. So you weren't trying to please me or any of my colleagues who've been presenting, but that's fantastic to see that 3/4 of you, 76%, say definitely you want to get into your classrooms and use some of these ideas tomorrow. That's absolutely brilliant. Other people, the next biggest chunk, say yes, once I've sorted out hardware and software. Other people acknowledge there are significant issues to be overcome, but yes, it'll be a good thing to do. And nobody is saying no way. Well done. Thank you very much.